Hi, and welcome to my channel. Or if you're a returning subscriber, hi again. It's so nice to see you back here for another video. My name's Tess Lark, and today I'm going to show you how you can make a resin geode wall hanger using epoxy resin, real crystals, alcohol ink, and some pigment powder. As always, I'll have all the materials that I use for this project linked down in the description below. So if anybody wants to try this project for themselves, all that information will be right down there for you. And let's just hop into today's video. To save some time in this video, I went ahead and I pre-mixed 100 milliliters of clear resin, and I'll be adding some mica powder to that. And I'm using Arteza's mica powder, and I'm using their dusk purple along with their bubblegum glow. And I'm just going to go ahead and thoroughly mix that mica powder into my resin until it's completely incorporated. The next step will be to fill up my crescent mold. So I'm just pouring from kind of a high angle to allow some of those bubbles to pop. And after I've got my mold filled up, I'll go ahead and hit that with my heat gun before covering this up and letting it cure completely before moving on to the next step. So it's the next day and I've let my piece set up completely, and I'm going to go ahead and pop it out of the mold. And I love the way that this purple color turned out. I think it's really beautiful. My next step is to take some hot glue and attach my crystals. And I like to attach the crystals in either clusters of 2 or 3. And to be honest, you guys, I wish that I had made these a little bit less linear, so I wish that I had kind of popped that middle one out a little bit more, but that's okay. We move. And so now that I've got my crystals on, I'm going to go ahead and take a little bit of some clear resin, and I went ahead and I mixed up about 60 milliliters of resin here, which I'm just going to go ahead and section out into some different cups, again reserving a little bit of that clear resin to the side. Then I'm going to go ahead and begin to add my colors to my resin. So I'll be using Blanco Blanco, it's the white by Pinata colors, and it's a really good idea to mix up your pigments before you mix them in with your resin. And when I sectioned out my resin to make up my different colors, I kept in mind that I would need mostly white with just a little bit of purple and a little bit of a lighter purple. And again here I'm just adding a little bit more white to my resin because I do want it to be pretty opaque. And you can check and see how opaque your colors are by just looking at how the resin looks on the end of your popsicle stick. And then moving right along, for my lighter shade of purple, I'll be using that same Blanco Blanco along with some of that dusk purple by Arteza. And just a little bit of the pigment powder in this one, again because I'm only going to need enough purple to essentially draw a few lines through the white resin. And because I've got my lighter purple finished up, it's time to move on to my darker purple. So I'm using the Passion Purple Alcohol Ink by Pinata Colors and adding that to a little bit of my resin and just making sure that's really thoroughly incorporated. Then I'll go ahead and pop those bubbles using my heat gun before moving on. So starting out with my clear resin here, and I'm just going to lay a bit of that down around the base of those crystals. And I don't want to add too much resin here because the resin is quite viscous and it will kind of spread out. So I'm just going to use a popsicle stick and sort of get it around the area where I want it to be. Once I've got a good base layer of resin down, I'm going to take some crushed glass and just apply that to where I put down that clear resin. And this is just going to add some texture, and you can go ahead and use a clean paintbrush to just kind of clean up that edge a bit. And now that we've got some texture down, we can start playing with our colors. So I'm starting by adding some of my white and then going in around that outside edge with some darker purple, and then adding just a bit of my lighter purple around where I place the darker purple. And then in with the heat gun to sort of bloom out those colors and push them together. And then I'll just go ahead and get some of those lines to be a little bit more crisp by adding in a little bit more of my colored resin. And to be honest, I think I overworked this piece just a little bit, but I do have some other geode tutorials on here that I really loved, and I will link those in the description. So here is the finished product after I let that set up, and I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more texture to this piece. But you do want to let your piece cure completely before adding some more texture, or it'll all just kind of sink down into the piece. So I did let this piece set up another day before moving on. So I'm adding some more crushed glass, and I'm just going to add a little bit of clear resin to that, just enough to pretty much wet all the crushed glass and get it to stick together, but not so much that it's really runny. And also guys, if you are liking this video so far, please don't forget to give it a like. It not only helps out my channel a whole lot, but it also lets me know that I'm making content that you guys want to see from me. After the crushed glass is the consistency that I want, I'm going to go ahead and transfer that into a sandwich bag to use as a piping bag. And one of you guys here on YouTube turned me on to this trick and my life has never been the same. So you just put out the bag into an empty cup and you can use both of your hands to scrape all of that crushed glass right into that bag. Thank you so much for this comment. It really did change everything for me. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut a nice big little slit into that, and I'm going to add my crushed glass onto the piece to add some more texture. And I'm just going to clean up those lines using a clean popsicle stick. And you can really use that texture to add some more depth and dimension to your piece, a little bit more interest, and also to kind of reinforce some of those lines and shapes that the alcohol ink made. And then after I've added a bit more texture to my piece and I've cleaned up all of those lines really well, I'm just gonna go ahead and let this set up again for about 12 hours and then we'll move on. All right, and we're back and we're moving on. Could you imagine if this tutorial took like 3 or 4 days? Anyway, so I'm using a Deco Premium Color paint pen to add some more silver lines to my piece, and I'm reinforcing some of those bolder textured lines that I made before, and then adding a few more detailed lines. And while you're doing this, don't be afraid to change the direction of your piece just to get into all those nooks and crevices a little bit better. And let me know down in the comments below, are you a new resin artist? Are you an artist that is new to resin? Are you a experienced resin artist just looking for new techniques or ideas? I'd love to know where you're at in your resin art journey down in the comments below. And so I'm just gonna go ahead and finish up this piece. Well, not finish up this piece, but I'm going to go ahead and finish up with my paint pen by going around all of the outer rim of this piece with my silver. But because the paint pen can chip over time, after I'm done filling out all of these little spaces with my silver paint pen, I'm going to give this piece a few minutes to dry, and then we'll go ahead and add a top coat to it. And when you're top coating your piece, you really don't need too much resin, again, because it spreads quite a bit. So I went ahead and I mixed up just about 20 milliliters off screen. And before I top coat my piece, I'm gonna go ahead and elevate it off of my working surface, just in case I get any drips. And whenever you're elevating your piece, you also wanna make sure it's level so that the resin doesn't pool at one side or the other. So just taking a little bit of my clear resin here, and I'm just gonna go ahead and slowly start to add it over my piece. I'm just gonna add a little bit here and there because I'm gonna go ahead and take my fingers, of course, using gloves. I know I don't have to tell you, but I'll be spreading this resin around just using my fingertips. And here I'm just working to get a nice even thin coat of resin across the entire piece, again to help that paint pen so it doesn't chip over time, and also to secure any of those crystals or crushed glass that might not be secured all the way down completely. So once we've got a nice even top coat on the piece, we'll go ahead and hit it again with the heat gun, and this helps pop any bubbles that might be forming in the resin. And then before we actually make this into a wall hanger, we'll go ahead and cover this up one more time and let it cure completely. All right, and moving right along. So I've got this little crystal here, and it is top drilled, which means it already has an existing hole right through the top. So I'm going to take some craft wire in a silver tone, and I'm going to cut about 6 to 7 inches using some wire cutters. So for this part of the project, we'll just be doing a little bit of basic wire wrapping to attach our crystal onto our crescent. You'll begin by threading that wire right through the center of your crystal, trying to get it equally in the center of the wire. And then go ahead and cross the wires over each other so that you formed a little X at the top of your crystal. Then you'll take one side of that wire and you'll start to wrap it a few times around the other side, just kind of giving it a nice little twist. Then you'll want to take one of your wires and have it facing straight up with the other one to the side. Take some needle nose pliers and get it sort of close to that junction of where the wires start to twist, and twist it over the pliers, making a loop. Then you'll go ahead and twist those wires over that loop to secure it into place. Start by twisting one of those wires over the other a few times, and after you've got it pretty secured down, kind of covering any little gaps in the wires that may have formed while you're twisting, use your pliers to cut off that side. Then you've just got one longer side, and you'll go ahead and repeat that process by twisting that wire down around the twists that you've already made and cutting off the tail. And then take some pliers and just kind of flatten that out so that there's no sharp points poking out. So now that we've made our crystal into a little charm that we can hang, we'll need some chain to hang it with. So I'm just cutting a couple lengths of chain, one that's about 1 inch and one that's about 3 inches. And next I'm going to go ahead and mark on my crescent where I want to drill some holes. Again, I will have everything that I use for this project, including the drill, linked in the description below. Because we do need to drill some holes to add our hardware, I'll be using this little rotary detail drill, but first make sure that you're using proper precautions, using a face mask and some eye goggles, because you definitely don't want to aspirate or get any of those little particles into your eyes. So just drilling my holes here, making sure I'm not going all the way through the lip, and then I'm going to go ahead and clean that off and I'll attach my hardware. In order to make sure that the hardware is really secured in there, I'm going to be using some E6000 glue. So I've just put that down on a little bit of wax paper, and I'm going to take an eye screw and put a dab of that on the end before screwing it into my finished project. I like to start out by putting in my eye screws just using my fingers, and once I get them pretty fully in there, I like to tighten them all the way using a pair of jewelry pliers. And just a little tip, you want to make sure that once your eye screws are all the way screwed in, they're laying flush and parallel with the direction of your piece. Then I'll just make sure that the chain lies the right way. And then to attach my chain, I'm going to take a couple of jump rings and I'll open those up using my pliers. I'll attach one side of the jump ring to the chain and the other side of the jump ring to my piece. And using those pliers, I'm just going to go ahead and carefully close that jump so that it's really secure and laying nice and flat. You really want to make sure that these bonds are secured, because the last thing that you want is for a wall hanger to fall down because the jump rings have come apart. So again, just attaching the other side of the chain using another jump ring that I've opened using my pliers, attached it to the piece and to the chain, and I'm just going to go ahead and close it up here. I'd also like to throw it out there that if you are liking this video and you like videos from me, please don't forget to subscribe. It really means the world to me. I appreciate my subscribers so much. I really thank you guys for being here and showing up to my videos every week. It makes all the time and the effort that I put into these videos really, really worth it. So attaching my smaller chain here so I can attach the rainbow catcher. And I'm just going to attach the top first before I attach the crystal, so I can kind of lay it down on the surface. And seeing here that it was going to be a little bit too long, I just cut off a couple of those links, opened another jump ring, and I'm going to go ahead and attach that final crystal. Alright, and here we have our finished piece. I think it's looking really stunning and it's ready to go off to its forever home. As always, guys, thank you so much for spending part of your day with me, especially if you made it all the way to the end of this video. And if you did make it all the way to the end of the video, leave me some sort of purple emoji in the comments. I really hope that this video inspires you to make something of your own today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!